know this is true for some of you. In your plight to better your life maybe has been difficult. Here's what you need to hear, man. Your circumstances, your job, your family dynamics, they don't have to dictate your self-worth. Let's face it, great news, we want to share it with the people we love, the people we respect. Let me tell you who you won't tell great news to. Something you're excited about. You're not going to tell it to the guy walking around in Casey's who's talking to himself. You're not going to tell great news to that distant uncle who thinks he knows everything, but really is pretty ignorant. You know, you're not going to tell this special announcement, to somebody who you work with every single day who microwaves sardines for lunch. You're not going to tell that guy. You're not going to tell the person who can't spell baby. You want people you're close to. You want people you love. You want people you trust. You want people that you know you can rely on. Which brings us kind of to the story today. Why did God choose shepherds? It's mind-boggling. They were like the lowest of the low in society. They were uneducated. They were at the bottom of the food chain. They weren't even allowed to testify in a legal court because they were considered unreliable. And yet God seeks them out on this hill, probably 5 miles from Bethlehem, 5 miles from Jerusalem. Some theologians speculate that these were the sheep that would someday be sacrificed at Passover. Ironic, Christ being born, visited the angels visiting the shepherds who were guarding the sheep, and someday Jesus would be that sheep, the sacrificial lamb for the world. But why these guys? Why these shepherds? There's got to be a reason. So here's what I want to do. I want to just unpack some things I feel like the Lord's laid on my heart regarding this passage that I think they're beautiful. And there are things that should cause us to maybe sit up a little bit and say, you know what? I want to approach Christmas a little different this year. For example, check out the shepherds. It says that night the shepherds were in the fields. And I already kind of alluded to this, shepherd status. The shepherds did not have a real high status in society. They were the overlooked ones. No one trusted shepherds. But I think that's part of the reason why God went to them. Throughout the Christmas narrative, we see a God who is humble. And he himself is attracted to people who are humble. And he's attracted to people who understand how poor they are. That they don't necessarily really, in the big picture of things, they're small. They have little to offer outside of a God intervening in their lives. And God's attracted to that. Though our world may be unfair, and I know this is true for some of you, in your plight to better your life maybe has been difficult. Here's what you need to hear, man. Your circumstances, your job, your family dynamics, they don't have to dictate your self-worth. They don't. God does not measure a man or woman's worth by society's standards. Clearly, this is a message in the bringing of the announcement to the shepherds, that God favored them, though they were not favored in society. It's crazy to me how their culture despised shepherds, because the king they most praised was King David, who happened to have been once a shepherd boy. And look what Jesus does in his life when he gets to that place where he's starting to teach. What does he say people who are following him? He says, I am the good shepherd. I'm the good shepherd. There's this heart of God to esteem what man tends to despise. And he lifts up this role of a shepherd, and he lifts up the role even of sheep, because he knows we're like sheep and we need a shepherd. But I love how he's not afraid, man, to look to the heart. As a matter of fact, that's what God tried to teach in the whole process of picking King David, and why many people overlooked him to begin with. He said, God said, man looks to the outward appearance, but God looks to the heart. And God looks to our heart these days. He doesn't look to our circumstances. He doesn't look to our checking account. He doesn't look to, how many decorations we have for Christmas. He doesn't look to your TikTok following or your Instagram following or your Facebook. I mean, he looks to the heart, church. My status in this life is not my stature in God's sight. And I would hope some of you would get that in your heart. My status in this life is not my stature in his sight. Because some of us are running a rat race, thinking somehow that's going to bring it. And the person you want to please are not the people around you. It's not your spouse. Ultimately, it needs to be God. And God got low to get you high. Come on. And I'm not talking about an artificial high. He came to lift you up. Even as he did the shepherds with this, valuing them by esteeming them with this beautiful message. And perhaps this Christmas, God would love for some of us to emulate him by getting low and looking for opportunities to lift others up. That this Christmas could be less about you, whether people liking the gifts you gave them or the kind of gifts that you give or about all the lights. And it could be for you looking for opportunities just to serve somebody, to love somebody, to get low, and to lift somebody else up. I'd love that.